New Zealand, a land at the edge of the world, far away from the rest of the continents, isolated in the vast Pacific Ocean. Today, people know it for its breathtaking mountains, snow-capped peaks, endless green valleys, and crystal-clear lakes. A country where sheep outnumber humans and nature feels untouched. But behind this beauty lies a deeper story. A story of survival, migration, colonization, and resistance. Long before European ships ever reached these shores, New Zealand was already home to a proud people, the Māori. They came across the vast ocean using only the stars, the waves, and their courage. This land became their home, their battlefield, their sanctuary. Later, when the Europeans arrived, everything began to change. Wars were fought, land was taken, and cultures clashed. Yet the spirit of New Zealand grew stronger, shaped by both pain and resilience. To understand New Zealand, we must return to its origins. From the first Polynesian explorers to the British colonists, and the long struggle to protect identity, land, and freedom. This is not just the story of a country. It is the story of survival at the edge of the world. Hundreds of years before Europeans even knew this land existed, brave voyagers from Polynesia set sail across the Pacific Ocean. They had no compasses, no modern maps, only the stars above and the waves beneath. These explorers traveled in great double-hulled canoes, carrying their families, crops, and animals. After weeks, even months on the open ocean, they reached a land unlike any other. Towering mountains, giant forests, rivers full of fish, and skies filled with strange birds. This was Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. The Maori had found their new home. They built villages, hunted moa, giant flightless birds, now extinct, and carved their history into wood and stone. Every mountain, river, and forest became part of their legends. They didn't just see land. They saw ancestors, spirits, and gods in every corner of nature. Tribal life began to flourish. Different iwi tribes emerged, each with its own leaders, warriors, and traditions. But survival was not easy. Tribes often clashed over territory, resources, and mana, a sacred power that determined status and respect. And so New Zealand's history became one of both unity and conflict, shaped by the Maori's strength and resilience. They were masters of navigation, fierce warriors, and proud storytellers. This was the beginning of a culture that would one day face one of its greatest challenges, the arrival of outsiders. For centuries, the Maori lived undisturbed, believing they were alone at the edge of the world. But in 1642, everything changed. A Dutch explorer named Abel Tasman set sail across the southern oceans. His mission was to find new trade routes and undiscovered lands. When Tasman's ships finally sighted the coastline of New Zealand, he became the first European ever recorded to set eyes on this mysterious land. But the meeting between Tasman's crew and the Maori did not begin with friendship. Misunderstandings and fear quickly turned violent. Several of Tasman's men were killed, and he left without ever setting foot on shore. For more than 100 years, no European dared to return. The land remained isolated, its secrets hidden, until 1769, when the British explorer Captain James Cook arrived. Cook's voyages were different. He mapped the entire coastline, documented the land, and tried to build relationships with Maori chiefs. His detailed maps would later open the floodgates for whalers, traders, and missionaries to sail into New Zealand. These first encounters were filled with tension, curiosity, and danger. The Maori were strong, proud, and unwilling to bow to outsiders. But slowly, the world had discovered New Zealand, and New Zealand would never be the same again. By the early 1800s, New Zealand began to attract waves of Europeans, whalers, traders, and missionaries. They came seeking riches from the sea, natural resources, and souls to convert. Maori chiefs saw opportunities in trading with these newcomers. Muskets, metal tools, and blankets were exchanged for food, timber, and flax. But the arrival of muskets changed everything. Suddenly, intertribal wars escalated into the infamous Musket Wars. Entire villages were wiped out, and the balance of power between tribes shifted violently. At the same time, Christian missionaries landed on the shores. They built churches, schools, and tried to spread their faith. For some Maori, the teachings of Christianity offered peace, new knowledge, and alliances. For others, it was the beginning of cultural erosion. Slowly, European influence began to weave itself into Maori life. The more Europeans arrived, the more tension grew. Maori feared losing control of their lands. The British, meanwhile, sought more authority to govern their settlers. The seeds of conflict were being sown, seeds that would grow into one of the most defining moments in New Zealand's history, the Treaty of Waitangi. In 1840, a historic document was signed, the Treaty of Waitangi. British officials and many Māori chiefs gathered, hoping to build a partnership. For the British, it meant sovereignty and control over the land. For Māori, many believed it promised protection of their rights, culture, and ownership of their ancestral lands. But here lies the tragedy. The treaty had two versions, one in English and one in Māori. The translations were not the same. In English, the chiefs had supposedly given away sovereignty to the crown, but in the Māori version, they believed they were simply granting governance, while still keeping full authority over their lands. This misunderstanding would haunt New Zealand for generations. Soon after, land disputes erupted. More and more British settlers poured in, hungry for fertile land. Māori communities were pressured, tricked, or forced to sell. And when they resisted, the wars began. From the 1840s to the 1870s, the New Zealand Wars raged across the islands. Māori warriors, armed with traditional weapons and muskets, fought fiercely to defend their land and honor. British soldiers, supported by colonial militias, used cannons, rifles, and military strategy to crush resistance. Entire villages were burned, lands were confiscated, and thousands were killed or displaced. The Treaty of Waitangi, once seen as a symbol of unity, became a source of bitterness and betrayal. For Māori, it marked the beginning of a long struggle, a fight to reclaim dignity, land, and justice. By the late 19th and early 20th century, much of Māori land had been taken. Many communities were pushed into poverty, their traditions fading under the shadow of colonial rule. For decades, the Māori people were treated as second-class citizens in their own land. But the spirit of Māori never died. In the mid-20th century, a cultural and political awakening began. Māori leaders demanded justice, land settlements, and recognition of the Treaty of Waitangi. Slowly, their voices grew louder. By the 1970s, protests erupted. Māori marched through cities, occupied lands, and confronted the government. They wanted the world to know the treaty had been broken, and it was time for New Zealand to face the truth. In response, the government established the Waitangi Tribunal in 1975, a commission that investigates treaty breaches and recommends reparations. Since then, billions of dollars worth of land and resources have been returned to Māori tribes, though many still believe it is not enough to heal the wounds of the past. Today, New Zealand celebrates its dual heritage. Māori language, Te Reo Māori, is now taught in schools, spoken in media, and recognized as an official language of the nation. Traditional ceremonies like haka are performed proudly, not only in cultural festivals but also on the world stage, like the legendary All Blacks rugby team. Yet the journey is not over. Many Māori communities still face poverty, health challenges, and systemic inequality, but their fight continues, and their resilience inspires New Zealand to embrace its true identity, a land built on both Māori roots and European heritage. Today, New Zealand is more than just breathtaking landscapes of snowy peaks, crystal lakes, and endless green fields. It is a nation that rose from a painful past, learned from its struggles, and chose to build a fairer future. Once, this land was scarred by tribal wars, broken promises, and the heavy shadow of colonization. But now it stands as an example of how a nation can face its history, heal its wounds, and move forward with pride. The Māori people, once silenced, now stand tall, their language, traditions, and spirit revived. Meanwhile, the European settlers' descendants have come to realize that New Zealand's true strength lies in the unity of two worlds, the heritage of its indigenous people and the legacy of its settlers. New Zealand may not be perfect, but it teaches us one powerful lesson. A nation that dares to honor its history, no matter how painful, becomes a nation that grows stronger. And in the end, New Zealand remains a land of mystery, beauty, and resilience, a country born from struggle, but forever carried by hope.